City of Riverside Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Poltz?
Here.
Mr. Richardson? Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mr. Timbrook?
Here. Make a motion, we excuse JR. He's on TDY. Second. Roll call?
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Poltz?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
Yes. Okay. Everyone had a chance to go over the minutes? Any corrections, additions, changes? I'm good with it.
No changes.
Okay. Make a motion, we approve the minutes as written. Roll call, please. Second.
Mr. Childers?
I'm trying to get you out of here by 10. Yes?
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Poltz?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
Yes.
All right. Okay, let's see here. I guess we got our first hearing. Let me get situated here. First is the 19, I think, right?
Yep.
So BZA 21-0019 at 2714 Valley. So you want to tell us what's going on?
First, I'm going to swear in. I, Naya Holt, affirm that the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge. So this is BZA case 21-0019 for 2714 Valley Pike. This is a request for a variance from section 1107.05 and 1115.01 to allow a 8-foot fence in the front yard setback. The subject site is near the intersection of Valley and Hypatia. They're proposing to construct an 8-foot wooden privacy fence in the front yard. It will span across the northern portion of the property, screening the existing mobile home park. This is the zoning map, and this is where the fence will be constructed. It is in the R4 multifamily zoning district. Here is the aerial map. Again, this is where the fence will be constructed. The subject site is in blue. Here's the site plan. So the dark, somewhat solid line is the proposed fence. Here is the front of the subject site. The still subject site, but it's the adjacent structure to the west. The property across Valley. The variance area where you can see where the fence is going. Another view of that variance area along Valley. And I'm showing you just looking straight down that front yard where that fence is, another view. And just to give you some character, I'm sure many of us have been down this road, some of the fences that are on nearby properties. Another quick view. These are the standards for approval when considering variances. The first one, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without the variance. For the first variance, that is the front yard setback, the property can still have a beneficial use and still yield a reasonable return without the front yard setback. And that is true for the second variance, which is for the fence height as well. The second standard for approval is whether the variance is substantial, and that is yes to both variances. The first variance is a 100% encroachment into the front yard, and the second one is 166% increase of the permitted fence height. Considering the third standard for approval, whether the essential neighborhood would be changed or altered, it would not change the essential character of the neighborhood, nor would any of the surrounding properties suffer any damage. The proposed fence will also be out of any site triangles. And it's similar to other fences as we saw. The fourth standard, whether it affect delivery of government services, the answer for both variances is no. Whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions, we don't have enough information about the applicant's knowledge at the time the property was purchased. The sixth standard for approval, whether the property owner's predicament can be alleviated through some other method, and that is no for both variances. For the first one, considering the front yard setback, there are homes on that portion of the property that cannot be moved, of course, and this is an existing non-conforming condition. Additionally, there is a difference in elevation between that section of the property and the sidewalk. For the second variance, it's the same consideration. They're requesting a taller fence to make up for that difference in elevation. The final standard for approval, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning regulation would be observed. This is yes for the first variance, the front yard setback. As I mentioned earlier, there is a difference in the elevation between the sidewalk and the subject site. And so the applicant is providing a buffer between those homes and the sidewalk. And we're saying no for the second one because there could be the same goal met even with a shorter fence, a 6-foot fence. So staff finds that the requested variance for the front yard setback is adequately justified and meets the standards for approval and recommends approval of variance 1 for this front yard setback. The second variance, we find that it's not adequately justified and does not meet the standards of approval. We recommend denial of this variance. We would recommend it with conditions if the fence is 6 feet in height. Here are your required actions, either approve or deny based on the testimony you hear today, the staff report, and any evidence provided at the public hearing. And just to remind you of what the variances are, you have the chart here. Are there any questions for staff?
Got a question.
Yes.
Why is the staff recommendation 6 feet?
You can still screen with that level, and it's not so substantial of a
Okay.
variance.
Okay, so it's like the substantialness.
Yeah.
Substantiality.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll, at 7:08, we'll open the public portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for this property? You want to step up and swear? There's a swear in up here. Just read that piece of paper up there.
Say, I, Roger W. Kilbasa, Kielbaso, affirm that the testimony I'm about to give the Boarding of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge.
Can you spell your name for me?
Kielbaso. Roger's the first name, Roger.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
What would you like to say to us?
I'm here on behalf of the owners of the property. My company is Arcade Deck Builders. I'm the contractor that would be putting in the fence. And the owner of the property, Dayton Estates MHP LLC, which owns the property at 2714 Valley Street. They're requesting the 8-foot fence because basically the way the grade goes up that hill between the property and the street is about 4.5 feet to the bottom of the street. Then there's a handrail goes above that. So to be able to not see into this property, you would need an 8-foot fence. 6-foot fence really wouldn't accomplish the goal. The goal being to try to hide as much of the ugly as possible, and be able to make this a little bit better living space for the people that do live there. They can still see the cars. The people in the cars can still see into the property using the 6-foot fence. The 6-foot fence really doesn't do anything.
So the city recommends or allow for a 6-foot fence. The minimum is what? I mean, the maximum is 36 inches, right? 3
In the
feet.
front yard, yes.
So at 6 feet, you're already double. You want to do that more than that.
Absolutely.
Now, so you're saying that you don't want to do 6. It's either 8 or nothing for you, right?
Well, what was presented was an 8-foot fence. I didn't know there was something we could do other than that, but the owners believe that, again, it's about 4.5 foot high just to the street level. So a 6-foot fence is only 2 foot higher. Anybody can see over that. Where the 8-foot fence, at least you're going to obstruct that view somewhat, at least to people going by, and also to the people that live there, to be able to give them some privacy in their own homes.
Can you see a picture of that then? What it would look like with 8 and 6?
Oh, I don't.
Huh?
I do not have that.
Well, just
But I
show me the
can-
fence as it is, and we can,
There's no fence there now.
There's
Well, there's
no
nothing there?
railing there
No.
along. Yeah, there's nothing there.
There's a railing.
You can
that
look straight
goes
oh, is that
along
just
the-
that rail
the
we
road.
saw run down the street?
Yes.
That was installed by the city.
Yeah.
That's not. a
Okay, so
problem.
They
that
put the
rail-
new sidewalk and stuff in there.
Sidewalk of that rail that's got the bars on it?
Yeah.
So how big, how tall is that?
Well, to the bottom of the street, from the
Oh, there you go.
the ground level to the bottom of the street is about 4.5 feet.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the fence that's there now, or that's railing that's there now.
That's
How-
just railing there. There's no fence there.
I got that.
Yeah.
How tall is that?
About 4.5 feet. To the top of the railing, about 8 feet.
From the ground
So
to the
it's
top of
about,
the railing?
about almost 3.5 feet tall for the railing. So approximately 7.5, 8 feet to the top of that railing.
Right now,
Yes.
8 feet? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you can see on the picture in front of you there.
That doesn't look like 8 feet to me.
From the
From the top of the
ground to
railing.
the
Yeah.
top
Oh,
of the
from the
railing.
ground.
To
From the ground.
to the sidewalk level is about 4.5 feet. And then if you take into account for that, about 7.5 to 8 feet to the top of the railing.
Okay, so if you put a fence in there, is it gonna go to the ground, or is it gonna go on the sidewalk? Can't go
No.
on the sidewalk, can
No, it's going to go on the ground.
it?
That's why they're
Yeah.
requesting an 8-foot fence to be able to bring it up at least to the height of the railing.
Got it.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? So a 6-foot fence then would not hide the railing, correct? It would come, you would still see that if you were in that first home there, you would still see the railing with a 6-foot fence, correct?
Yes.
So that's something, I don't think we
Well,
had that information,
It's,
did we?
if I can explain, the height of the, you can see all the way down here where this, in your picture where the telephone pole is, that's at grade. Okay?
Right,
As that goes up, the street goes up, by the time you get to the end of it, it's about 4 to 4.5 feet tall. Okay, and then the railing on top of that, which is about 36 inches to 40 inches, 36 to 40 inches. So again, by the time you get to the end of that road, into the railing, you're 4.5 feet already just from the bottom of the road,
right.
where the road
Right.
is, or
Yeah.
the sidewalk.
So the grade changes along there.
Yes. But before that, there would be an 8-foot fence, but like I say, as it goes up, the fence is going to get shorter.
Gotcha.
I have a question for you. Roger, it's good to see you. First of all,
Yeah, it's good to see you.
you've done a lot of good work in the city, including some of my fence. So I know you guys will do a stellar job with whatever you do. I think really one question that would summarize this would be, you've been doing this for quite some time. You're a professional, you're an expert within your field. And if you have a client that says, hey, give me a 6-foot fence, knowing the elevation, and that some of it might even be right at flush with the railing, would you advise them that that would be a good use of their money to put a 6-foot fence in, or in your professional opinion, would that be more of a waste of?
Well,
Time
my
and
feeling
expenses.
It'd be a total waste
Okay.
of the materials. You know, you've already, by the time you get to the end of the walkway, you're already at 6 foot. It's not hiding anything. It's not sheltering the people from onlookers or any type of privacy that they would have. Now, at the beginning of the walkway, obviously it is going to give them a bit more privacy, but like I say, by the time you get to the end of that, you know, it's 4.5 feet or so high just to the bottom of the walkway, plus the rail. It wouldn't even hide the rail.
So anything less than an 8-foot fence, you would probably advise your client, what I just heard you say, to not do that because it wouldn't accomplish what they're trying to accomplish.
Yes, I would. I wouldn't even consider doing the job unless it was an 8-foot fence.
Okay. And I'll have some comment during discussion, but thanks for that, Roger. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Also, the owners were very adamant about an 8-foot fence. And again, the reason why is because when you get down that area, 6-foot fence just doesn't do anything.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here would like to speak in opposition to the application? Okay. 7:16, we'll close the public portion. So what do you guys think?
Sound like you had some comments?
Well, that's a crazy assumption, Maurice.
Sure.
No, so I think, you know, looking back at this, because I am, like I say a million times, I'm the nerd that watches every council meeting. And I remember when this discussion started, and if I'm wrong, city staff can correct me, but it started with our zoning department had issued a code violation or a letter to the owners about a sign that was erected on the property, which started the discussion within city council. And a council member at that time started the discussion that they didn't like the way that the property looked from Valley Street. It was a fairly lengthy discussion. So I think what we see is that the owner of this property heard the city and heard some of the council members say, work with them to come up with a solution to try to screen this off a little bit and make it look a little bit better. And I think that's what they've tried to accomplish here. And I don't see any point of a fence less than 8 foot because it doesn't accomplish that goal of what the city council had asked for to happen. And then my last comment on would be is I saw that if we approved it, the city staff was asking for conditions to be put on there. And I would say that if we put a motion forward to pass this, I would not vote for a motion with conditions. I would recommend that we do a motion without conditions because again, this is a variance. There's no reason for us to send it to planning commission to make sure that our variance is the right decision. And I think that they're trying to accomplish what the city's asked them to accomplish here. And if we issue that variance, it seems like a pretty no-brainer to me, to be honest with you, what they're trying to do.
I have a question for Gary. Did you just mention that there's some information you just didn't have or realize until just now?
Well, did we know exactly what the elevation change was?
No.
So I think in light of that, I think the gentleman expressed well, there's quite a elevation change there. Wasn't exactly sure the purpose of how much screening they want, whether they wanted those homes along there to be able to see over the top of the fence, but certainly understand his point that would give not only privacy, but adequate screening for anyone traveling on the street as well. So
So do you agree that 6 feet at this point we had on here with that thing, you know, going from the ground up 6 feet wouldn't do it, right?
well, right now that we know those actual dimensions in light of the actual elevation change there, it makes sense. We now know the goal, and that is to have enough screening there, both for the residents, but also for passerbys on the street as well, and even people walking on the street as well. Wasn't aware of that actual, how much of an elevation change there was there. So ours was based on the fact that it's a substantial variance. 6 foot normally would if the ground were level, would be adequate. But in this case, the ground's not level, given the fact you've got the buildup of the sidewalk in the street.
So it sounds like it's okay at 8 foot with the ground elevation where it's at.
Yeah, I think that's what's been ferreted out here tonight, that you have such a
Without
change in
conditions.
elevation that you have to compensate for that with the taller
So it
fence.
would be without conditions, 8 foot without conditions.
Well, I would note that that condition is, like we said at the previous meeting, to let the applicant know what their next step is. And a privacy fence per our code
What are you
is,
saying?
that condition is there to let the applicant know, I know I have discussed this with them, that a privacy fence is not permitted in the front yard without a waiver. So that's to let them know
So
that,
whether it's 3 feet, 6 feet, or whatever, privacy fence
correct.
needs a waiver.
correct.
So we need to have a condition there for a waiver,
So he would still have to go to planning commission before I could issue.
just to
a-
have a privacy fence, period,
Correct.
In the front yard.
in the front yard.
Correct.
But we don't have to make that a condition though, because that's a requirement for him to build it anyway, right?
No, it's not. We
Right.
give them, if we grant it, they got it. Is that
If
right?
we grant a variance, if we say yes. 8
Without
feet,
condition.
Without condition, he still has to go to planning.
Don't think so.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, he still does. Yes,
He still does?
yes.
So we don't need to make it.
So we don't need to add.
The variance you're granting is on the dimension, which is that it exceeds the current code on dimensions, given the circumstances though. But then he would have to, on the design, since we don't allow privacy fences, which it is considered a front lawn, he'd still have to go through the process to go to. So
We
you
don't have
could,
to add that in. It's
so
already
you
there.
could grant the variance. Well, will that need to be a condition, Nye, or will that just?
That is up to the board. That's, as we explained, something we've been doing to help the applicant understand their next steps.
Yeah,
Well,
as
when
we,
we give a
So
variance,
it's
you
in the
gotta tell them that.
minutes. We've talked to them as well outside of it. So it's in multiple places.
we do, if I may just recall the previous meeting, some of the problems we've had is that someone gets a variance and then they think, well, we're done. And we don't have to go back to planning. That's the reason that we've added, if there is another step that's required in this particular case, a waiver for the type of fence, the privacy fence in the front lawn. It's nice to have it on the record here so that the applicant knows they have one more step to get full approval prior to construction.
And I would say it's good that this applicant has already submitted their fence permits because they know that is already coming. So that's not a,
So we're not
Condition.
damaging them if we put the condition on. They gotta do it, but they gotta do it.
It's more of, as we said before, it helps the due process so no one ends up with a violation because, or comes back and says, well, we didn't know we had to do. So I think the more information the applicant has, it's smoother and better, not only for the city, but for the applicant in this case, so that they don't start construction tomorrow, but say, well, let's go to the planning commission, we'll get all the approvals, and then we'll be ready to go.
I don't have any problem putting the condition on there. Because they gotta do it anyway. So either way we do it, it's either way. And if we knew he was gonna be the construction guy forever, then we could trust him to maybe, because he's professional, right? We could trust him to tell him what he's gotta do, but we don't know where he's gonna be next week. So
So on the conditions, there's 2 of them in there.
we're not gonna do the first one.
Okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Not gonna do the first one. It would just be basically that they get a waiver, which they have to do anyway. So we're not damaging them.
Yep.
Everybody,
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, may I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
I wasn't aware that I'd have to go to another meeting, but would that meeting?
go to another meeting?
Would I have to go to another meeting, planning?
Well,
Yes,
that's- You have to
meeting?
tell them about
I'd
that.
have to go to a planning meeting?
yes.
And then do I need to go before the planning meeting? or would
Yes, I
that
have the
happen after?
application here for you.
Okay,
Yep,
so,
there's, yeah.
so what do I do? Just stop in here Monday through Friday kind of thing, and then I can fill out the waiver
Yes,
application,
yes.
and then I would need to go to the planning.
Mhm.
Okay, and when would that be?
That would be September 20th.
Okay. And then I would imagine you'd send me a letter and all that
Yes, yes.
kind of stuff. Okay, so I just want to make sure I got that right.
Yes.
So
Sure.
it's on record that I came up here and I asked the questions. So it'd be my fault if I didn't follow through, right?
Well, it's good to know that you know now.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so I will show up sometime this week.
I have the applications here for you.
Oh, you are so kind.
You haven't even got the variance approval yet, Roger. So you haven't even got the variance approval yet.
I'm not worried about
He's
that.
optimistic.
I'm not worried about it. I see all your happy faces today. I'm sure you're
How
gonna,
can you see our face?
I can tell. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any questions for anybody?
No.
All right. So let's have do our thing here. Let me see.
Do we know what we're really approving or not?
Yeah, when I get done, you will.
Okay. I trust you.
We're doing more.
All right, for variance A, which is the front yard setback. We found that the Riverside zoning ordinance was passed in law after rigorous procedure was followed. Therefore, we begin our inquiry with the presumption that the law should be upheld without a variance, and the burden is on the appellant to show by convincing evidence that the code should be varied regardless of how large or how small variance may be. We find that the property in question would yield a reasonable return, and there can be a beneficial use of the property without a variance. We do take note that the fence will replace a chain link fence in the front yard. We find the variance is substantial. The requested variance is 100% encroachment into the front yard. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, nor will adjoining properties suffer any detriment. The appellant's predicament cannot be obviated through some method other than a variance. With the homes along the portion of the property, the fence will not be able to be moved back. This is an existing non-conforming condition. We find the spirit and intent behind the zoning ordinance would be observed by granting the variance due to the dramatic difference in elevation between the property and the public right-of-way. Taken into consideration, the city zoning staff recommends approving the variance as requested. We find the appellant has met the burden of proving that practicalities exist for a variance in the front yard setback requirement. Therefore, I make a motion, variance be granted as requested.
Second,
Roll call?
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
yes.
Mr. Foltz?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
All right. And then on variance number 2, fence height. We found that the Riverside zoning ordinance was passed into law. Rigorous procedure was followed. Therefore, we begin our inquiry with the presumption that the law should be upheld without a variance, and the burden is on the appellant to show by convincing evidence that the code should be varied regardless of how large or how small the requested variance may be. We found that the property in question would have a beneficial use without a variance. The applicant could install a 6-foot fence. We found the variance of 166% is substantial to increase the permitted height of the fence by 60 inches from 36 to 96 inches. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, nor would it cause detriment to adjoining properties. The proposed fence is similar to others in the neighborhood and will be out of sight triangle of any traffic. The applicant's predicament cannot be obviated through some method other than a variance. We find that spirit and intent will be observed by granting variance. I'm gonna stop right there. We also take into consideration the zoning staff recommends denying the variance as requested. We take into consideration the city zoning staff would recommend approval if a 6-foot fence was requested. We find the appellant has met the burden of showing the practical difficulties exist for a variance for the front yard setback. Therefore, I'll make a motion that the variance be,
Are you on the right one?
Setback, this should be the fence height.
what?
You already did this.
Oh. Well, I used the top half a lot.
I know. I figured, I just want to make sure I don't get messed up.
Thank you.
Good catch.
Practical exempts variance for the front, for the fence height.
Mhm.
Therefore, make a motion that the variance be granted as requested with the condition of privacy, with the one condition. Privacy fence greater than 36 inches in the front must be approved by planning commission. If the planning commission does not approve the waiver for the higher fence, the applicant must install a compliant fence.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Foltz?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
Yes.
There you go, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I really do appreciate your patience.
Oh, you're great.
It's us you got.
I'm not.
Well, I don't want to see that.
I guess one last question, do I need to have anything else or will this be sent to?
You said you have an application form.
He's already got it.
Have
Thank
a good
you,
night,
sir.
Roger.
Customer service. Yeah, I have a date of when he needs to get on.
Okay. Ready? All right, what? We now hear case number BZA 21-0020. Pepperwood variance. City, want to tell us what's going on?
This is a variance request from section 1107.05 to allow an encroachment into the required rear yard setback. The requirement is 25 feet, excuse me, and the request is a 5-foot encroachment. The subject site is located on the corner of Pepperwood and Silver Arrow Drives. They're proposing to construct a patio cover on the existing house. The proposed cover will project over the concrete patio that's already there. Here's the zoning map. It is in the R3 medium density zoning district. The subject site is outlined in blue. Here is the aerial photo of the subject site, and this is where the proposed patio cover will go. This is the site plan. Again, you can see where the proposed patio cover will go in the setback. This is the front of the subject site. The adjacent property across Pepperwood. The variance area. Another view of the variance area. You kind of see where that patio cover will come out. It'll meet the end of this house right here. These are the standards for approval, similar to the case before. The applicant could have beneficial use of the property. However, we acknowledge the property will yield a greater return and more use for the applicant with the patio cover. This is a substantial variance as it is a 20% encroachment. The character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, nor will any other properties suffer any damage as a result of the variance. The delivery of government services will not be impacted by the proposed variance. Staff does not have enough information regarding the applicant's knowledge at the time the home was purchased. And for the sixth standard for approval, whether the property owner's predicament can be alleviated through some other method, the answer is no. The variance is required to allow the patio cover to match the existing footprint of the patio that's there. And finally, yes, this variance request does meet the spirit and intent of the code. It's already meeting the required side yard setbacks and will match the existing home and the character of the neighborhood. Staff finds that the requested variance for the rear yard setback is adequately justified and meets the standards for approval and recommends approval of this variance. These are your required actions to approve or deny based on the information staff report and any testimony and evidence provided today. Again, reminding you of what the variance is being requested. Are there any questions for me?
Okay. 7:34, we'll open the public portion. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application?
I'm Ronald Rybold, the owner of 4969 Pepperwood. I purchased the property. in, I
Excuse me,
believe,
sir.
April.
Excuse me. Can you swear in?
April?
There should be an oath
There's a
right
note
there.
right there. You need to swear in, sir.
Yeah, you
Under-
just gotta read it. You gotta just gotta read what's on that
Look under
paper.
your paper. There's a sheet, there's an oath.
Yes,
Yeah,
right there.
just say that.
I, Ronald Rybold, affirm that the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you, sir.
Purchased this property back in April, and it had a brand new 10 by 20-foot concrete patio floor put in. So needless to say, I wanted to put a patio cover over it. And I need a variance because it's going to be connected to the house with flushing, so I can control the water coming off the roof and going across my awning there. In other words, if I don't do that, I'll just have water running between my awning and my house. And the variance is just for that, of course, that patio, but it's also going to be connected right to my house. So it's not going to extend past my house or anything.
Well, the variance is actually, it's a 5-foot encroachment into the setback, but that's okay.
Yes,
Not just attaching, but everything.
I'm having a hard time understanding.
Yeah,
My hearing aid is,
that's okay. We're good. You're right. Do you have anything else for us?
well, nothing I can think of right now.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the owner?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the application? Like that, so I want to take it home? Anyone here would like to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here like to speak in opposition to the application? Okay, close the public portion at 7:36.
I'm good with it.
I've almost no comment. It covers the existing patio. It
Yeah.
looked like in one of the pictures, there was some kind of pergola situation going on there anyway.
Right.
This one will be connected to the roof. So it'll be the same character as the house.
Yep. Everybody feel the same? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so our findings are, we find that Riverside zoning ordinance was passed and law to rigorous procedure was followed. Therefore, we begin our inquiry with the presumption that the law should be upheld without a variance, and the burden is on the appellant to show by convincing evidence that the code should be varied regardless of how large or how small the requested variance may be. We find that the property in question would yield a reasonable return, and there can be a beneficial use of the property without the variance. We find the applicant is requesting 20% encroachment, which is a substantial variance. We find the essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered and nor would adjoining properties suffer a substantial detriment. We found the owner's predicament would require a variance to allow the patio cover to cover the footprint of the existing static patio. We find the spirit and intent behind the ordinance would be observed by granting the variance. We take into consideration that the city zoning staff does recommend granting the variance as requested. We find that the applicant has met the burden of showing that practical difficulties exist for variance for the addition as requested. Therefore, I'll make a motion that the variance be granted as requested.
Second,
Roll call?
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
yes.
Mr. Foltz?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
There you go, sir. You're welcome.
Doesn't like you tonight, Matt.
Okay, the next one is a toughie one. All right. All right, so the next case is BZA 21-0021, Rover Driver Appeal, 120 Rover Boulevard. City, want to tell us about?
This is a appeal of an administrative decision regarding the denial of a right-of-way permit and a zoning driveway permit. On July 2nd, 2021, the engineering technician, Mark Tilley, performed a pre-work inspection at the site. He noticed that the new driveway exceeded the maximum width permitted at both the right-of-way line, so that's where the private property meets the public right-of-way, and the apron itself. He notified both the applicant and the contractor that the proposed driveway was not in compliance on that day. On July 6th, after the July 4th holiday, a follow-up inspection was performed. Mr. Tilley found that the work had been completed out of compliance and denied the permit. The code enforcement officer, Robert Lunsford, went to the site to also follow up and measure the driveway. He cited the applicant with several violations, including the non-compliant driveway. Zoning staff reviewed the permit several days later and found the proposed driveway was not compliant. The site plan did not depict the accurate property and that it crossed over property lines. That permit was denied on July 13th of 2021. In response to that, the applicant submitted an appeal on July 26th of this year. And pursuant to our code, the board has the right to hear appeals. Here is the zoning map. The subject site is outlined in blue, and you can see that it covers 3 parcels. They are not combined. And it is in the R3 medium density zoning district. Here is an aerial comparison. This is the 2019 aerial. It's the most current one we have, and an aerial from 2016. Here is the site plan that was submitted with the appeal application. This is the site plan that was submitted with the zoning permit. These are the site photos of the front of the subject site. This is the new driveway that was poured. It should be noted that this is where the right-of-way starts, right here. Here's another view of the driveway. A view from street view from Google 2015. And here is the one from our engineering technician on July 6th. So staff finds that the driveway that was put in just exceeds all of the dimension and requirements that we have in section 1113.13. The maximum width is 30 feet. And when it meets the public right of way, it has to narrow down to 30 feet, or excuse me, 24, and then it can come back out again in the apron to 30 feet. So it's 30, 24, 30. So that driveway is over 33 feet in the public, excuse me, in the right of way and on the private property, and the apron is over 51. The current aerials that we have show that there was an expansion between 2016 and 2019, and we don't have any records of a permit when that original expansion happened. So any further expansion loses any non-conforming rights that would have been there on the property. We find that the staff knowingly paved the driveway and apron with no valid right-of-way or zoning permit. And they were informed by the service department that the areas marked to be paved were not in compliance. There's sufficient evidence that the applicant knew the driveway was not in compliance and that he completed the work without approved permits. Neither the applicant nor the contractor had received permit approvals for the work that was done. We made the correct decision, the service department and the zoning staff, to deny the permits because the applicant and the contract knowingly complete the driveway and the apron in violation of the UDO. So the required actions are to find if the applicant has met his burden of proof to sustain his appeal. And I have both the code enforcement officer, Rob Lunsford, and Mark Tilley, the engineering technician, if you have questions for them. Are there any questions for any of us?
Thank you.
Just one question for staff. This, can you,
I can go back.
can you go back to the site plan that was submitted?
Yes.
There you go. So help me here. The site
So-
plan has a driveway at 30 feet.
Yes, so
Can you-
I will note that this is a sample site plan that we have on all our applications. And it was drawn over.
Okay, and this is on 3 lots, correct?
Yes,
So if the 3 lots were consolidated through hiring a survey engineer, then, and that went through, then they could have filed for a variance for the larger driveway, correct?
that did not come up because we didn't have a chance to properly review the application.
Okay, I'm just wondering, would that
Yeah.
be a solution to it if that would have had the chance to do that?
Well, I think we were advised at our previous meeting that questions regarding variances, this is strictly regarding the appeal, not the options, but the appeal of the decision of the zoning administrator.
Any other questions?
You mentioned something on one of the slides. It wasn't one of the pictorial ones that was talking about, they have to do something, but I wasn't sure what you meant by that.
Oh.
Can you roll the slides back?
Of course.
Okay, hold on. Wait.
Is this what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Bring the driveway into
Must
compliance.
bring it into compliance. What does that mean?
So when we spoke that a permitted driveway can be 30 feet on private property, and then when it meets the right of way, it can narrow down to 24, and then when it goes to the apron, the maximum width for that is 30 again. So that would be bringing it to
Is there
compliance.
an apron?
There is.
Um,
So,
Perhaps you
Yeah.
can point that out in one of those photos.
so
Is
when we
that-
say apron, we're talking about this
Okay,
section
gotcha.
here.
Okay. So what would they have to do?
I'm gonna refer Mark to this because he sees.
They gotta unstreet that street.
Well,
Mr.
yeah, I'm
Mr.
trying to
Chairman,
they're
can we,
telling us what they need to do, but I'm not sure I understand what they need to do.
Mr. Chairman, if we may, could we have both Mr. Lunsford and Mr. Tilley, once we get to the public hearing, answer these questions so that it's part of the public record once you
Oh,
open
yeah.
the hearing? Is
Yeah,
that
that's
okay
fine.
is that
We'll do
okay
that.
with the board? We'll swear them in at that time and
Yeah.
then any questions, but I'd like them to testify to what is presented in the report.
We'll do that.
They can't do that now?
No,
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
but we'll get to your answer though.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand it. Sure.
Yeah. So do you have any other questions other than
I think that's enough,
that?
at least for now.
Everybody else ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Yep.
At 7:48, we'll open the public portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of the application?
Hello, I, Clyde Mason, from testimony about to give to the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct, to the best of my knowledge. We assumed the property in 2018 as a purchase by
Why don't
my
you pull that thing
father-in-law.
down so we can hear you?
By my father-in-law. And the property was as it was when we got it, and I just capped the driveway with Mr. Oakley's approval. We filed for a permit, and I guess it was denied, but I wasn't aware of that, and they came out and told us that we weren't allowed to pave it, but we paved it anyway. And I understand now that I need to file for variance, and I've talked to my attorney, and he says that we go down to Montgomery County, apply for whatever it is, to have all 3 parcels put to one, then we won't exceed 35% of our street value. Which will
Can
make
you
the
pull the mask
driveways.
down and speak a little louder? Because I can't tell what you're saying.
What's
Just take
that?
your mask down.
What's that?
Now then, and then get a little closer to that mic.
Okay.
That's better.
All right, so I talked to our attorney. He said that we go down to Montgomery County, get the parcels all put onto one. That way it won't exceed 35% of our street value, and we should be fine with that.
That sound right to you? No?
I don't think that's pertinent to this discussion. We're talking about the right of way
Okay.
And that is the right of
dimensions.
way.
and the right of way in both the zoning relative to the width, the dimensional.
So let me understand. You were told not to do it without a permit, but you did it anyway.
As far as I knew, Mr. Oakley had applied for the permit. We were good to go. He dropped off the equipment, had the paving crew there and everything else. They paved the driveway.
Mr. Chairman, we'll be able, after this testimony, we'll be able to clarify that with our witnesses here tonight as to whom was informed prior to the paving of the driveway.
And I was informed that we should not pave the driveway.
You were informed not to.
They were told, I was told that we shouldn't pave the driveway because the permit was not approved
You were told it before it was done.
while they were paving it.
Okay.
He came out and made marks on it when they were halfway through the driveway.
All right. Now.
They were there paving the driveway when he showed up to show his marks. And he said, here's where you're allowed to be. Here's your easement. You can't exceed this and that, and that, and this. And these guys are paving the driveway. I've got dump trucks and a paver and 2 rollers and 10 guys on the ground. I mean, what the hell am I supposed to do?
I don't know. That's why we're here.
Yep.
But the point of this hearing is not a variance or anything like a variance. The whole point of this hearing, what you file is an appeal of their decision-making process. And your appeal says that they incorrectly, mistakenly, or somehow they used the wrong law or didn't interpret it properly. So are you saying that what they did was improper?
No,
Okay, so you're not really appealing their decision-making process. You're just saying you didn't know about it, so it paved it.
correct.
And that's your whole argument.
Yes.
Okay,
I didn't know I needed to file for variance until I got with the lawyer after I already paid for the appeal. So I'm here in front of the board for an appeal that obviously I shouldn't have filed. I should have filed for a variance. and
well,
had
not for
all-
this, not in this case, at this point, it's too late,
Okay,
but, you know, you may be able to come back to that.
very good.
So your whole argument is just Oakley didn't tell you, so you just paved it,
Correct.
okay? But really all you have to say about it? Yeah?
What
that's
else
good?
can I say?
Well, that's good. I'm not, that's not judging. I'm not suggesting you should.
All right.
I just want to give you an opportunity to say everything you want to say.
How about we get my wife up here? She's got a lot
Well,
more to say than I do.
I'm going to ask that question next.
Okay.
You know, do we have any spouses in the neighborhood? No, I'm just
Yes.
kidding. But do you have anything else?
No,
Okay. I appreciate it, Mr. Mason.
thank you.
Is there anyone else here would like to speak in for the application? Pull that mic down so you can get to it. There you go.
I, Michelle Mason, affirm that the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
I'm kind of, I was trying to let him handle it because things kind of happened real fast. We had been on a waiting list to have the driveway paved. I think there was some miscommunication going on. Now hindsight, I see that there was. We're just trying to improve our property. We have 5 children at home, 7 drivers in the house now.
What?
Our driveway, yeah, when we bought the house in foreclosure, sight unseen. We're not made of money. We're doing the best that we can to make the improvements that need to be made. Had you seen what the property looked like before the driveway went in, I think you could see why we were kind of in a hurry. It flooded so bad that most days the kids were parked in the grass because once you pulled 2 vehicles up, 3 vehicles up, everybody else was in standing water. I mean, like I said, I don't know what else to say other than where do we take it from here?
Yeah.
He just brought me the before and after if you want to see it. It was terrible. I mean, we had been on a waiting list for 1.5 years to get it done. Thomas Oakley don't really do a whole lot of driveways anymore. He's, big time, and a family member works for them. I used to work for him, and that's who we trusted to do the work for us. And that's ultimately, why we waited, and I guess why things happened so fast, because he had an opening and he was there to do it like that. I don't know what else.
Is
to
that
say.
driveway all for one house?
Yeah.
It
We
is?
have a lot of vehicles, a lot of, like we have, right now, we have 7 drivers in the house and we're getting ready to have 2 more next year. We have twins that are gonna be 16 next year. And I'm not, you can drive out, you can come over, come to the house and see who's there constantly. The girl, friends, everybody used to park in all over the yard. It was ridiculous. Would you like to see this before and after?
Sure.
After a lot of the water had went away.
So this is before, this is all after, okay. Looks like you got a runway there. Do you have a helicopter? or something?
Hey, it's going to use because now kids are out there on skateboards and stuff and they're not running all over the neighborhood. So we don't allow that around over there.
Thank you.
So am I done? 'Cause I'm nervous. I'm not good at public speaking, but I'm
You're
talking
doing a
from the
great
heart
job.
here.
You're
All
doing a
right.
great job. Is
Thank you.
that all you have to say then, I guess? Okay. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Mason? Is there anyone else here would like to speak in an approval for the application? Anyone wants to speak in opposition to the application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we
No.
would,
We'll have that. City.
okay, very good.
Who wants to be first? You got to come over here and swear in. Yeah, you got to swear in now. Yeah, I don't care. You can do it there. Where you're sitting doesn't matter to me.
Okay. I, Mark Tilley, affirm that the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeal is correct to the best of my knowledge. On the day that the work inspection was done, I notified Mr. Mason that where he intended to have the new driveway paved was out of our compliance.
Get a little closer to that mic, like.
Sure. That it was, his drive was out of compliance that he wanted to do. And I, like he said, I did show him, the dimensions on the pavement. But however, it was not while they were getting ready to do the paving. The trucks had pulled up,
You can't talk anymore. You're good.
The trucks had pulled up as I was leaving. At that point, I did make a phone call to Tom Oakley to let him know that his permit had been denied on the basis that the dimensions were out of our code. So therefore, Mr. Mason was notified even before they even started doing the work.
So you're saying that before anything was done,
Yes, sir.
everybody was aware of the oversized?
Yes, he was in his comment when I showed him, he said, I'm just going to pave it all anyway. That was his comment.
Anyone have any questions, Mr. Till? No. No. All right, thanks. Got to swear in there.
I, Robert Lunsford, affirm the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge. I kind of came into this one late in the ballgame after Mark had come back and realized that the asphalt had already been laid is when it got passed over to me, merely because I'm the guy that actually sends out the violation notices. So I went out to take the measurements and confirm that it was indeed over the size, and yes, it's 33 feet width of the driveway, and then wingtip to wingtip's 51 foot and 1 inch. So it's considerably over what it's supposed to be. And we had discussions there that day about wanting me off of his property, even though I was standing in the street, and I tried explaining the public right of way, and he wouldn't listen to me, so I just finished my measurements, my photos, and came back to the office.
Okay, so it was already done when you got involved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was there on the 7th. It had already been down long enough. They were driving on it.
Any other conversations that you can relate to us about how it all happened?
No.
Didn't get into that?
Nope, all that was marked before the fact.
Okay. All right, Mr. Mason, you want to step forward? You're still under oath. You can dispute what they say if you want.
Mr. Oakley was actually at the job site at about 9:30 in the morning. The crew showed up at about 10 o'clock.
Now, when was this? When he was there?
The day that we paid before he showed up. I can't remember your name, sir.
I can
Go
make a
ahead, go
comment.
ahead. What?
I was not there on the day that the paving started.
Okay.
The paving evidently was on a Friday. I
Okay,
was not there on a Friday.
all right.
I notified Mr. Oakley that his permit had been denied even before he started. I called him up to let him know because the crews had just pulled up to start doing evidently the job as I was leaving. So there's no way that he had pavement on the ground.
So they started as you drove away.
They were getting out of the vehicles to do whatever the operations that they were there to
to
do
do
as I
something,
was
okay.
leaving his residence.
No, sir. They had been there since about 9:30 in the morning and this gentleman didn't show up until about noon. And they had already put down about 50 ton of blacktop.
Well, the thing is,
And that's the God's honest truth.
well, I believe you. I believe him. Problem is, it's not relevant.
Okay, then why am I up here? There's no
Well, because
relevancy.
you wanted to dispute what he said. So you are, but here's the problem. That doesn't change the fact that you did something you weren't supposed to do without a permit.
I didn't do it. Mr. Oakley did it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you know how that works. You're the property owner. You're the one
Okay.
that gets to bear the brunt of it. The only thing you can do now is you have to talk to Mr. Oakley about paying you back whatever he needs to pay you back. That's got nothing to do with us.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if he did something he shouldn't have been doing it, then that's between you guys.
I did everything I thought was proper. I asked Mr. Oakley to file for the permit, filed for the permit. We gave the dimensions that we thought was going to be correct. We have now that I see that 3 parcels need to be put onto one. We're going to do that through Montgomery County and I
Well, what
guess
about the
file
comment?
for a variance.
What about the comment, that you're gonna pave it anyway, even though you don't have a permit?
I do not recall making that comment, sir. I don't pave. I used to run a Bobcat.
No, I
farm.
know you didn't do it. I mean, you're gonna pave it. I don't mean you personally gonna pave it, but you're gonna get it done. You know,
The crew was there. They were paving.
well. Yeah. It
It-
still was against the law to do that without a permit, without permission, oversized, without getting all that stuff done. If you got the permits, you would have been within compliance. I know Oakley would have got it done the way it was supposed to be done and we wouldn't be here.
Okay. Have a great day.
All right. Yes.
I have a question for the city. It goes back to what I was originally asking. What are they,
Sorry,
what are they? What are other folks out here supposed to do now to bring it in compliance? What are they supposed to do?
Well, just to bring up another instance, just this week, there was another one that was out of compliance. And so what the contractor did was come down and cut the edges off of the apron and just basically put the driveway into compliance by removing the excess driveway.
So he just shaved it back to the right size.
I'm sorry?
He shaved it back to the right size.
Yes, sir.
Did that guy have a permit?
Yes, he did.
He didn't have a permit? He
Yes,
just went back bigger than the permit allowed?
yes, sir.
Mr. Mason, would you have any problem shaving it back to the right size? What, come up to the mic. You're sworn in, so you're still under oath. Pull the mic down.
I do, for one, because the way that side of the plat is, the water runoff is ridiculous. And mainly right there at the entrance of the driveway is where a majority of that flooding was. And now that it's going off to the side, it's not, it's not even flooding the yard like it was. So it's not hurting anything, and I understand there wasn't a permit and what have you. Okay, I get all that, but to have to go back in there and do all that work, I mean, if you come, I wish I had more pictures to show how bad it floods right there at the street, because there is nowhere on that side of the plat for the water to go. It's ridiculous. Our front yard on the other side still floods. Like there's a big water hole right where my property meets with the neighbor's property. I mean, we had to put cones out there so people coming down the road would quit driving through it because it was making ruts so bad at the end of the property.
So you're saying you would not be willing to shave it back to get a permit and make it in compliance. You're not willing to do that?
I'm not saying I'm not willing to do it, but I'm saying I have a problem with doing that because the whole point in trying to make things, we were trying to make the property better, not only with the cosmetic of it, but the way it functions for our family.
I understand.
So
Yeah.
then what, I mean, if we go and file for a variance through the county, like, does that,
Well, you can't do that at this point. You have to wait till all this is over before you do that.
okay,
You can't get a variance on top of a non-permitted property.
That's not accurate.
So you're telling me they're illegal, they don't have a permit, they go file for variance and we get to hear it? Is that what you're
Absolutely.
saying, Todd?
Absolutely, you can.
I don't know if that's right. Is
That is right.
that
Now you
right?
can correct me.
Because you've heard those cases before after the fact variances.
What?
Yeah,
All the time. Someone
we-
put
But
up a
that-
fence or a
that's
carport or
beyond
something.
what the
Well,
scope
I
of
got
this
that, but we're talking
particular.
about something.
Yeah,
different.
let-
The fence can be moved.
Yeah, let me clarify here. The attorney, our legal counsel, Mr. Miller, advised at the previous meeting that the scope of this hearing is limited. He also advised relative to any variance that this appeal needed to be adjudicated first. And if they wanted to inquire about a variance, whether that would be permissible or
Okay.
not, but that is not within the scope of this hearing. This is about the appeal. And it is the city's position, given the testimony that we've heard so far, that no evidence has been presented by the applicant in this case that
No, I got
justifies the appeal.
I got all that. Yeah.
Okay.
But so that would just be up to them if they want to file for variance, apparently.
Sounds like they probably will.
All right. Anyone else have any questions?
so I have a question. So was it said earlier that that driveway sits in the middle of two of the parcels?
Yeah.
So it's on two separate ones. So can it be like split because it's on two
Well,
separate
that's something you
ones?
discuss with these guys. That's not our. All we got before us is that you did something you shouldn't have done. And you got to tell us why we should agree with you over them. And there's no way to do that because you've admitted that what you've done is illegal.
Well, in my opinion, like I said, things happening so fast, I was kind of, I personally was unaware of some of the things that were taking place. All I knew was my driveway was getting put in today and I was tickled pink. So, but my question now is I want to resolve this and I want to resolve it in the best way to where I'm not going bankrupt. I live paycheck to paycheck. We held on, not that it's anybody's business, but we held on to our stimulus check to make this happen. We knew that it would take us years to save to get it done. We took the opportunity, we told Thomas we had the money to get it done. We had been waiting. He said, let's do it. He got it done the first time, the first opening that he had available for it. So like I said, things just happen fast, but I'm to the point where I just want to know what we can do to get it resolved without having to come out of pocket.
Right. Well, again, we're just here to discuss what happened, what you did, and how you fix it, how you get out of this. That's not up to us. We don't get to do that. Now, if you file for a variance, you probably get to hear from us. But other than that, it's not something we decide today, not something we can talk about today. I'm just being a little bit liberal on the stuff that we're talking about because I don't want you to go home and your head blow off because you didn't get to say everything.
It's probably going to happen.
What?
I said, that will probably happen.
I know.
You get
but,
nervous and you don't really say everything
But
you want to say.
we just have to follow the law. That's what we're here
It's
for.
understandable.
So,
All right, thank you.
all right. Anybody got anything else?
For the public now.
Is there anyone else like to speak in favor of the application or in opposition to the application? So at 8:09, we'll call the public portion. You guys got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got into a similar conversation we got into last time where we kind of spiraled talking about what the options are beyond the case in front of us, which is simply was the decision correct or not? Right?
The decision was correct.
I think it was. I think the applicants admitted basically it was.
Yeah.
I think there's a way forward for them, but that's outside of our purview tonight.
Anything?
I'll restate my opinion from the last meeting that I think we're looking at the entire enforcement action.
Do what?
I think we're looking at the entire enforcement action when we look at an appeal. With that being said, I don't think the city had any other option in this case. If it would have been one consolidated lot and they were asking for a variance, and then they denied the variance and that's why it was appealed, then that would be different. But the city had no other option in this case, other than to do this. And I think the applicant already stated that he knows the correct process to
Right.
go forward and have this taken care of, which is one of their options and probably better than shaving a driveway down.
Okay,
So
you good?
yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. I'm
I
gonna
tend to
read,
agree with both.
well, I'm just gonna read what I've got here and then you guys can
I feel
agree
bad.
with it or not
I
agree
feel
with it.
really bad about it. I don't know
Well-
what other options do we have?
Right. Okay. We find the Riverside zone ordinance was passed law, rigorous procedure was followed, therefore begin to inquire with the presumption that the law should be upheld without granting the appeal and that the burden is on the appellant to show by convincing evidence that the code should be varied regardless of how large or how small the requested appeal may be. We find the property in question contains a driveway that exceeds the permitted driveway width in violation of UDO section 1113.13 C6. This code section expressly prohibits a driveway to exceed 24 feet in the width of the right of way. We find that property in question contains a driveway that intersects a public street for which no permit was obtained prior to the expansion of the driveway into the right of way violation of UDO section 113.13 C1. This code section expressly prohibits driveway intersecting the public right of way prior to a permit being issued. We find the applicant was informed by the city staff of the UDO violations relative to his driveway project, yet continued to proceed without obtaining a permit in accordance with the code. Thus, his completed driveway stands in violation of the UDO sections listed above. We found that the testimonial and documentary evidence presented to the board supports the finding that the applicant failed to obtain a permit pursuant to UDO regarding the subject driveway width and failed to obtain a permit pursuant to the UDO regarding the subject driveway intersection through the public right-of-way. We find that a review of publicly available geographic documents presented to the board supports the findings that the driveway is in violation of the stated UDO sections. We find that the currently completed driveway in excess of 24 feet in width of the public right-of-way and without a prior permit for construction through the public right-of-way are in violation of the plain language of the code and that no conforming use or permit was granted for the property prior to construction of the driveway. We find that the appeal of the denial of the permit is substantial, that the requested appeal is complete deviation from the code. The code prohibits driveways in excess of 24 feet in width at the public right-of-way. The requested appeal is for the expressly prohibited driveway width in excess of the code provision. We find that the substantial detriment would occur to the uniformity and conformity of the code provisions to roadway permit applications should the appeal be granted, thus creating confusion and uncertainty for certain applications as to how the code is interpreted and enforced. We find that the owner's predicament can be obviated through some method other than the requested appeal by constructing a driveway that complies with the code with respect to width and by obtaining a proper permit for the driveway prior to constructing the driveway. We find that the spirit and intent behind the zoning ordinance would not be observed by granting the appeal. The driveway as constructed without a permit is in complete deviation from the plain language of the code, which expressly prohibits driveways in excess of 24 feet in width, public right-of-way on the subject property. Granting the appeal on these facts would violate the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance and create disparate application of the code in an arbitrary and non-uniform fashion. We take into consideration that the city zoning staff does not recommend granting the appeal as requested. We find that the appellant has not met the burden of proof for the appeal of the city's denial of the permit for the construction of the driveway as the plain language of the code prohibits the width of the driveway and requires a permit prior to construction, not afterwards. Therefore, I make a motion that the appeal be denied as requested as the applicant has not met his burden. Second,
Second.
roll call, please.
Mr. Childers,
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Polk,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider.
Yes. Okay. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, our next case is case BZA 21-0022, Robinwood variance. So you want to tell us what this is all about?
This is a variance request from section 1107.5 to allow an encroachment into the required side yard setback. The requirement is 5 feet. The request is a 1.5 foot encroachment. The subject site is about 130 feet west of the intersection of Robinwood and Underwood. The applicant is proposing to construct a carport on the west side of their home. It will cover a proportion of their rear porch and their existing driveway. Here is the zoning map. It is in the R3 medium density residential district. You can see it kind of narrows in the blue outlined subject site, excuse me. Here's the aerial map. And this is where the carport will go. This is the site plan for the proposed carport. And this is where the variance request is in the rear of the site. This is the front of the subject site. The adjacent property to the west, right next to where the carport will go. The variance area. Another view of the variance area, so you can kind of see that rear porch from here where the carport will cover. And just a closer view of the variance area. So you can see this is that side yard that we'll encroach into. These are some similar structures around the neighborhood. This one is on Logan Street. This is on Wood Hill. And another one, just to give you some of the character of the neighborhood. Now we get into the standards for approval. The first one, whether it will yield a reasonable return. The applicants could still have a beneficial use of the property, but we do understand and acknowledge the property will yield a greater return and more use for the applicant with the carport. This is a substantial variance, which is the second standard for approval. It's a 30% encroachment. The essential character of the neighborhood will not be affected, nor will adjoining property owners by this variance. Neither will the delivery of government services be impacted. Staff does not have enough information about the applicant's knowledge at the time they purchased their home. And no, the variance is the only option they have to build a carport on the lot due to the shape of the lot, as you saw. And the final, whether the spirit of intent will be met by granting the variance, yes. This is a pie-shaped lot, and they are able to meet the setback towards the front, but it's that rear section where it does narrow, where they're requesting the variance. So it is the minimum of the variance request that they're asking. Staff finds that the variance request for the side yard setback is adequately justified and meets the standards for approval. We do recommend with the condition that it's built in a way that is consistent with the character of their house. These are your required actions to approve, deny based on the staff report and the testimony and evidence that is provided today at the public hearing. And this chart is just to remind you of the variance that's being requested today. Are there any questions for me?
Nope. Okay. At 8:19, we'll open the public portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of the application?
Good afternoon. I, Jorge Ruiz, I affirm that the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge.
Yes, sir.
I have pictures. She was showing pictures of my driveway. This is the sun at 5 p.m. The wall.
I can take those so you can stay at the mic.
We purchased the house or the patio was already there. But 5 p.m, the sun, we don't enjoy the porch because it's so hot. And that wall, pretty much the kitchen is there. So in the summertime, the electric bill goes pretty high. We can never cool off that kitchen when we're cooking. It's raining. We have to hurry up or wait until, unload the groceries. Snow, we have to remove this. So it'll help us a lot if we just can get some kind of a roof in that side of the house.
Is it going to, the patio that's back there, it's long ways where your truck is sitting, you got to cross the front of your truck? It'll put that in shade then?
It'll put it in shade, yes, yes. And my neighbor, her property, her fence is in my property, but she's 83 years old and I don't want her to.
What'd you say? Say that
Her
again.
fence,
Oh, okay.
her privacy fence or the chain link fence is on my property a little bit and I didn't want to ask her to do anything with it. Maybe when the time comes, I'll do something with it, but I'm just asking for like 7 feet, if that, or 5 feet, because it'll be too close to her property, which she is okay. She told me, I know you need a roof, just get it done if you can.
Okay. Sounds good. Is there anything else? You can get your pictures here. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Reels?
Oh, I do have a question. So the city staff recommended, let me look it up. Recommended that it be architecturally consistent with the character of the house.
Yeah, I
Can
didn't
you
have,
comment on that?
yeah, I didn't have enough time to because I didn't know if you guys gonna let me, give me the permit. So I didn't have enough time to put something nice. But I don't want anything that's gonna look not like the picture she shows around my neighborhood. I don't want nothing like that. Now, another question, can I build it out of wood?
It's got to be architecturally close to your house, so that it looks seamless. So it's got the roof line and the pitch and the materials all have to be, it looks like it was made for it, had been there. Would that be a problem for you?
I was thinking to put wood and in the base, put stone, like, the stone you like make some, make it look really nice. It's part of the house.
I don't do any construction, so I don't even know if that looks good or not.
Yeah, but that sounds like it would look like the house.
Does it?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, just imagine yourself, if you put, like a base and you with stones around. I don't know, make it look nice. I just don't want a piece of metal in there.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
And I talked to the applicant about that and he submit a kind of concept drawing that I included in your packet of what
Alright.
he's thinking. So
So
He's
you're
a-
saying
he's
the
aware.
condition should be there, but you think it's gonna work out that way.
And it sounds like you've got no problem meeting that condition then.
No.
You're gonna do it right.
I will.
That's all I was asking.
Okay.
I'm good.
So can I build it? Well, okay, yeah,
yeah,
never
we-
mind.
We can
I don't
talk.
have any more questions.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
No.
All right. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of the application? Anyone want to speak in opposition to the application? Hearing none. 8:24, we'll call the public portion. Oh, wait a minute. You got something else? Oh, wait. You're against. Okay.
That's my wife.
Not today.
All these guys are bringing their wives. We don't usually get that. You got to swear in.
I, Christy Ruiz, affirm that the testimony I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge.
All right.
I'm asking about, you said the architecture or whatever. Does that mean the top has to be the same as our roof on the patio and the roof of our house?
I don't-
Because it will not.
I don't know what that means. Somebody else.
Well,
I think it's to
because you
match the
said it
pitch.
has to look like the house or like seamless from the house, but
That's a Naya
Yeah.
question. She'll help you through that
Yeah,
process.
I'm gonna contact you afterward.
okay.
Yeah.
'cause I
Of
don't
course.
know about- okay.
Yeah.
We know you
That's
want it.
fine.
We know you want to do it right, so she'll take care of it.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Anyone else like to speak for the application, against the application?
I didn't think you remembered. I was like, hooray.
At 8:25, we call the public portion to a close. What do you guys think?
Good.
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 All right. So we'll issue our findings. We find the Riverside zone ordinance was passed and the law's rigorous procedure was followed. Therefore, we begin our inquiry with the presumption that the law should be upheld without a variance and that the burden is on the appellant to show by convincing evidence that the code should be varied regardless of how large or how small the requested variance may be. We find the property in question would yield a reasonable return that can be a beneficial use without the variance. We find the applicant is requesting a 30% encroachment. This would be substantial. We find the essential character of neighborhood would not be substantially altered, nor would subjoining properties suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. We found the owner's predicament could not be obviated through some method other than a variance. A variance is required to build a carport on the applicant's pie-shaped lot. The variance is required where the lot narrows in the rear. We find the spirit and intent behind the zone ordinance would be observed by granting the variance. We also take into consideration the zoning staff recommends granting the variance as requested with conditions. We found the appellant has met the burden of showing that practical difficulties exist for a variance for the addition as requested. Therefore, I'll make a motion the variance be granted as requested with a condition as subject section of the UDO 1115.01.c. Accessory buildings or structures located on residential premises are greater than 100 square feet and floor area shall be architecturally consistent with the character of the house on the premises in regards to roof pitch, design, and materials.
Second,
Go roll call?
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
yes.
Mr. Foltz?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
You're welcome. And the last thing. Okay, so this is case number 21-0023, fence variance.
This is a request for variance from section 1107.5 and 1105.01 to allow a 6-foot fence in the front yard. The requirement for the front yard is 20-foot setback. Their encroachment is 20 feet. And the requirement for a fence in the front yard is 36 inches, and they're doubling that, so that is a 100% increase. The subject site is on the intersection of Georgia and Hypatia. So it's a corner lot, just to be clear. I know you love these. The applicant is proposing to construct a 6-foot fence on the front yard off of Georgia Drive. The proposed fence will enclose slightly more of the yard than the previous fence they have there on the site. So I'll show you pictures of what's there later on in the presentation. And it will be set back from the intersection, not to interfere with any site triangles for the traffic that's traveling along those roads. Here is the zoning map. The subject site is outlined in blue. It is in the R3 medium density residential district. Here is the aerial map, and you can kind of see where the existing fence is, enclosing a pool. Here is the site plan. I will note that it is measured from the edge of pavement and not from the property line. And that's why it is a full encroachment. But this is where they're proposing the fence, and it's coming up just a bit more than the current fence. Here's the front of the subject site, and you can see the existing fence here. The property to the north. Adjacent property to the south. Here's a front view of the variance area. So this is where the public right-of-way starts, just to give you an idea. Here's a rear view of the variance area. And then I'm going to show you the variance area from the right of way. And they're coming up just a bit more. So moving on to the standards for approval. Whether the property in question will yield a usable return without the variance. No, there is above ground pool on the property and it was constructed prior to the current zoning regulation. So the variance is required for the applicant to have a beneficial use of the property and observe the fence regulations. Whether the variance is substantial, that is yes to both. It's 100% encroachment on Georgia Drive and also that doubling of from going to 3 feet to 6 feet with the fence height. The essential character of the neighborhood will not be changed, nor will it impact other properties. It will be out of the site triangle. And it will not impact the delivery of government services as well. Neither variance will. Whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning regulations. So for the first one, the property owner purchased the property prior to the current zoning regulations. And for the second one, the same is the answer. However, it should be noted that the removal of the current fence is a loss of their non-conforming or grandfathered rights. And hence they're requesting the variance. There is no other option for them at this moment to put that fence back other than a variance. And due to the placement of the pool, they can only be constructed right on the property line on Georgia. And this is the minimum variance for the fence height that will afford them relief given the pool and to screen them from traffic on both streets. Whether it would meet the spirit and the intent of the code, yes, they've, as I mentioned before, have forfeited their rights for nonconformance and they're building a fence because it does have to be screened from the pool does have to be screened. And they're doing that to comply with those regulations. So staff does recommend approval for the front yard setback and finds that it is adequately justified and meets the standards for approval. We do recommend with conditions just to make sure that they know to construct the pool out of the public right way because it's right there and they have some other items there. So we just want to put that condition there that they know. And the second variance for the fence height increase, like the other one we had before, we're approving it with conditions that it goes to the planning commission for the waiver. The required actions are to approve or deny based on the information in the staff report and any testimony or evidence provided at this public hearing today. Are there any questions for me?
No. Okay. 8:33, I'll call the public portion to the hearing. Anyone here like to speak in favor of the application? You sat there all night long to say that, didn't you?
Finally. Tamara Allison, affirm the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge. I've owned the house for 22 and a half years. I've had a fence the whole time. I have custody of 2 children that aren't mine. They're really good straight A students with special needs. I have a pool and hot tub in the backyard for them to stay home. I want the neighborhood kids to come to our house so I know what my kids are. I have custody of my niece, so her mother, I'm trying to make the fence bigger because we have a window in the basement where you can see it's going to go to the side of the picture window. I'm trying to cover that up because somebody tried to get in and she has terrible anxiety because her mom has broken into her house. I've had her arrested 18 times. I don't never call the police. So she just got out of prison after 2 years of being in prison. She just got out Friday. So my niece has terrible anxiety. She locks herself in her bedroom. And so that's the reason why I'm trying to get, truthfully, I mean, I've had the pool, the hot tub and things for the whole 22 years. I got her a dog to kind of help guard the house, which makes her feel better, but somebody tried to get in our house. And so through that window. So that's why I was trying to cover it up that way with the lock. Can't jump a 6-foot fence unless you're really good. And we have a lock on the gate. So they can get through that way. And that's just for safety for them. And it'll make the dog have more room to run. So the fence is terrible. My house is beautiful, except for that fence is so bad. And I just wanted to do it. I wanted to do it right. So I guess that's why I didn't know. I have a fence company who's going to do it. He's been in business for over 40 years. And so he helped me fill out all the paperwork and things. So just hope to get it approved, get my yard looking better. It looks like hillbilly heaven over there right now. The dog punched his hole through one of the boards. So his head comes out every time we try to leave. He's got his head sticking out, and I don't want anybody to be scared of him, be afraid of him. So I'm trying to just get a fence to make it look nice. There's no houses that face my corner lot also. There's no houses on the street. So there's a stop sign in my very front yard. But there's one way back on the other side too, but the fence is not going to alter it at all from no point of view. Because my yard sinks down also. So it says 6 foot because that's how tall the boards are, but it won't be that tall either, like it is now. So appreciate y'all's time.
So you're gonna just change that fence and just bring it around? Get a different fence?
It's going to be, it's going to be exactly the same, except it's going to be, I had in the pictures that I sent her, I had, it was landscaped, and I had the trees that I had out there was probably 8 or 10 foot tall. And we took them out because it was rotting the fence. So it blocked the whole, you couldn't see in my yard at all. So we're trying to take it out just a few feet closer to the road, but we're taking it up to my picture window, which when she pulled it up, you could see it's just it's not very much at all. Because I had trees there. It was where I'm trying to take the fence. I took the trees out to put the fence there now instead of the trees where they were. She can picture where you can see probably where the pool was. You can see where the trees were. See, we already took them out on this. So the picture that I sent you with my niece standing in front of
Yeah,
that.
it was in their packet.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, so you can see it's going to come up right on the backside of right here. It's going to come to the backside of there, and it's just going to go out, I think like 2 feet more closer to the street.
You extending this fence, or you're just changing it all out?
That's the only thing's going to be exchanged. I'm getting a whole new fence.
Whole new fence, that's what I was
But
asking. Okay.
yeah, just because it's rotten. I've been there, like I said, so
Okay.
it's been replaced once in 22 and a half years. So
All right.
it's terrible. It looks so bad. But yeah, but if you can see,
You can see the trees.
Yeah.
yeah, see how big the trees were. So that's, you can see it's been there. That was landscaped when I bought it. They was that big, and we just kept trimming them down. So it's not going to alter anything that's not been there already, so. But I have that pool I have grandkids who come over, and so I want to keep the kids in my neighborhood safe, keep them there. So that's why I'm trying to get it. I need to get it bigger so my dog, because that takes up almost my whole yard, the pool does. And I just want to give the dog a little more space to run, and the kids more space for their friends to come over.
Now, there's one thing, because of privacy fence is as large as it is. You heard discussion tonight about these waivers, or the waiver for a higher fence by going to planning commission. You realize you have to do that?
It's not a higher fence. I already have a 6 foot fence up there.
Do what?
My fence is already a 6 foot fence. I've had it the whole time. My fence is already 6 foot.
Yeah, but you're tearing it down.
Yeah, I haven't yet though, because I have to have something for my dog.
Well, the problem is, correct me if I'm wrong, if you tear it down, then you got to comply.
Right. That's why I'm here.
So you have to go get a waiver because you have it higher.
Right. So
You don't have a
that's-
problem with it, right?
Yes, so it's
Oh.
having a privacy fence in the front yard.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what you said. My
Mhm.
side yard's like a front yard. Absolutely. I want to
Well,
comply.
you just got to go talk to some other people, not as good looking as us, but
I just need a fence. I can't stand it. It's so embarrassed by my fence,
okay. So but you understand you got to do that. You're okay with
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah,
All right.
she said after, if it gets approved, I'll have to have it through the planning commission also, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know how to do it, so
Yep.
We'll take care of
Yeah.
that. We got that covered.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Yes, thank you so much.
Hold on a second. Anybody have any questions?
No.
You're good?
Thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you.
Thank you. So we'll call it, there's no one else here. So 8:39, we'll call the public portion to an end. You guys have a problem? All right. Then we'll read our findings. We found that the Riverside zoning ordinance was passed into law after rigorous procedure was followed. Therefore, we begin our inquiry with the presumption that law should be upheld without a variance. And the burden is on the appellant to show by convincing evidence that the code should be varied regardless of how large or how small the variance may be. We found that variance is required to have a beneficial use of the property, an above-ground pool constructed on the property prior to the current zoning regulations. We found that variance is substantial. The request is 100% encroachment into the front yard. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, nor would adjoining properties suffer any detriment. The applicant's predicament cannot be obviated through some method other than a variance due to the placement of the pool and the fence. The pool and the fence can be constructed in the front yard on Judge Drive right up to the property line. We find the spirit and intent behind the zoning ordinance would be observed by granting the variance. The applicant has forfeited their non-conforming rights and is requesting a variance to construct a fence which would comply with pool regulations. We also take into consideration the zoning staff recommends approving the variance as requested conditions. We find that the applicant has met the burden of showing practical exempts for the variance and front yard setback requirement. Therefore, I make a motion that the variance be granted as requested with the condition that proposed fence must be constructed out of the public right of way.
Second.
Got a second? Roll call, please.
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Foltz?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
Yes.
All right. We got one, but you got to get both. Hold on. We find that the Riverside zoning ordinance was passed in law after rigorous procedure was followed. Therefore, we begin our inquiry with the presumption that law should be upheld without a variance and that the burden is on the appellant to show by convincing evidence that the code should be varied regardless of how large or how small the requested variance may be. We find that a variance is required to have a beneficial use of the property. An above-ground pool was constructed on the property to observe the current zoning regulations. We find the variance is substantial. The requested variance is 100% to increase the permitted height of the fence by 36 inches from 36 to 72, which is 6 feet. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, nor would adjoining property suffer any detriment. The applicant's predicament cannot be obviated through some method other than variance. The requested height of the fence is a minimum to afford relief to the applicant. We find the spirit and intent behind the zoning ordinance would be observed by granting the variance. The applicant has forfeited their non-conforming rights and requested a variance to construct the fence, which would comply with the pool regulations. We take into consideration that the city zoning staff recommends the variance, approving the variance as requested with conditions. The applicant has met the approval by showing practical exempts for the fifth site. Therefore, I make a motion that the variance be granted as requested with a condition that a privacy fence greater than 36 inches in the front must be approved by planning commission. If the planning commission does not approve the waiver of the higher fence, the applicant must install a compliant fence.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Foltz?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
Yes.
There you go.
What happens if they don't? Sorry. What happens if they don't approve it?
I don't really know what happens if they don't approve it.
That's a
You
Naya
can just
question.
appeal it then on that too, or?
I mean, you could appeal the planning commission. You'd have to come back to them.
Okay, I mean,
But,
I'm sure they
yeah.
will. It's not hurting anything, but I just want to do it right. That's why everybody's like, put your fence up without a permit. I said, I'm not doing that. I've owned a bar for 29 years on Valley Street. I'm not going to do anything wrong, so I tried to do it right. So I appreciate you guys.
You're very welcome. Thank you,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Have a good
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Anybody else have any discussion? What about the, us getting, being reviewed by the court system and all that? Anybody have any questions about that, or are we just gonna let it ride?
No comment.
Okay.
I don't see it as us being reviewed. It's the city filed an appeal, which is perfectly within their rights and
Do what?
let the court do it. I mean, that's their right to do it.
That's what I said. No, I just don't know
Yeah.
what I want to talk about. If they don't want to talk about it, I don't care.
I could be here all night talking about it, but I think we probably all want to go home. I do have a question though. Real quick for you, Mr. Chairman. Just for my mere education, because I'm new. I see you and hear you reading these big, long motions. Just for my education, where did that come from? You type all that out?
What?
Do you type all that out?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious.
Do what?
You send it to me after.
And then I sent it to her because it makes it easier for her instead of trying to record it. She just got it. She got the whole motion.
I listen, and then, because sometimes I have to, because you might be reading extra stuff, so, but it confirms what I do.
Yeah, no, it just comes straight out of this head. You know, I tell you what, I need to get a recorder for that first paragraph.
Or you just don't read it and we have a simple motion
No, I
and get to
gotta
dinner
read it.
easier.
I think I read it.
You want to enter it into the record.
That's
I
part
think
of it.
is what it's-
Do what?
I said you want to enter it into the record.
Yep, it's got to be part of the record, so I'll read it.
Okay, old business then?
I don't know any. Anybody know anything?
BZA work session, discuss future dates.
Yes, I know we've been hammering this away
Oh,
for a
okay, so
while.
discuss it, okay.
Staff has a lot going on right now. And now this resolution has come out for training. So what we're gonna do, and after talking with Gary, we're kind of gonna punt this down the line and give you some videos that have come up from the American Planning Association. I know we've done that in the past, and as Mr. Polt said, he's new, so we want to definitely get him caught up to speed with some of those videos as well. And all of you, because.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you have questions about those, you can always follow up and ask me.
So we're not talking about dates tonight, then, right?
No, we're not
Okay.
talking about dates and follow up to what you requested at the previous meeting, Mr. Chairman. We will get with Jim Miller, our legal counsel,
Yeah.
and have him come back to, as you suggested at previous
Yeah,
meeting,
sounds
and
good.
just have the BZA and Mr. Miller go over a few things.
Sounds
and
great.
some things as well. But yes, nice, correct. We're extremely busy, so we'll try to push it a little bit and then find a date that's compatible with everyone's schedule.
So they got a private room at Joe's Pizza.
No, I knew.
Well, it has to be open. Any work session has to be open to the public.
Now you got me thinking.
I second that.
We'll just have that at a different time.
And that's all I have.
Yeah, the public portion of it doesn't have to be in a big building. We just have to announce it. Yeah, it could be in somebody's yard.
Volunteering?
No. It's too hot.
Your parking lot?
It's too hot right now. Everybody good? Make a motion? Somebody want to make a motion?
Move that we close.
Second.
All those